All right, guys, I'm back for a review of the Arrow's excellent release of Masaki Kobayashi's The Human Condition. This is the 9-hour epic film that Criterion also released this as well. I've just got this and I've been kind of working my way through it. I think what I'll do is cover each part of the film. There's a couple options that you can watch this. You can watch the international cut, which is, I guess, in 6 segments. Or you can watch the Japanese cut, which is basically 2 parts per film. There's three films that broken down into 9 hours. So the first film, part 1, is the No Greater Love. And basically what this is a guy named Kaji. He's a leftist, idealistic 28-year-old that is anti-war, anti-military. And he's surrounded by a society that's in moral decay post-World War II and during World War II as well. He's working for a steel company, and the steel company has read this little thesis that he had come up with on how to get people to be more productive in the mining fields. And it's basically the slant is we need to treat people with humanity and you'll get more out of them. So this supervisor, thinking the idea is fairly quaint and interesting, sends him off to this mining field where through a series of events, his idealistic notions about how the world works come crashing headlong into reality. And the reality of a society that's completely, lost a lot of the moral principles that he values. And so the whole film is centered around the clash of his ideals versus the harsh reality of a society in moral decay. And ultimately, society wins. I mean, you've got a situation where, and I think it's a pretty common theme with particularly idealistic kids coming out of college and that type of thing. When you get into the business world or in the real world, to all of a sudden these values that you thought you had and were staunchly maintaining get molded and adapted by the society with which you have to live in. And so the film basically is about one man's moral decay over time, essentially. Kobayashi, the director Kobayashi, served in World War II, and he had a lot of the same feelings about war and the military and as this character did. And so his adaptation of this mega novel that came out about the human condition was something that he decided that he needed to try to portray in film. He was originally a painter. He really wanted to be a painter, but I think he, over time, realized that if he was going to make his mark soon and quickly, he'd be better off getting into film. Part 1 is just an interesting, it's an hour and 40 minutes. Interesting, again, it's an interesting early look at this guy's ideals clashing with trying to actually implement these ideals within the context of a slave labor mining camp, is what it is. And, sometimes the ideals don't win. So, one of the great comments in this film, the mining supervisor is talking to Kaji and saying, Kaji, let's supply these slaves with women of the night, and buy their loyalty and their work ethic. And Kaji's like, man, you can't treat people like that. And the guy says, well, what is a man, Kaji? To me, a man is just lust, greed, absorption, and excrement. So we're nothing in the society that Kaji is thrust into, if you will. He's human beings are just fodder to produce ore, in this case, mineral ore. They're tools, they're slaves, and the oppression of people, and the use of people as slave labor and just tools to produce an economic result has been something that's throughout the centuries. Almost every single culture and religion, I think, has practiced some form of slave labor. I mean, everyone does it. Everyone has done it in the history of man, it seems like. So it's a very telling and important concept, and I think the movie portrays that very well. This is part one. I probably failed to mention too that part of the subplot of this is Kaji marries one of his workers, his co-workers. And of course, that dynamic within their marriage is impacted as well by the fact that his ideals are getting basically trampled upon and slowly eaten away at by this moral decay within the society he has to live in. So, yeah, that's part one. No Greater Love, and so far, I would say this is my first viewing of The Human Condition. I would say it's a stunning piece of film, and it's a beautiful. The cinematography is just beautiful in this, black and white, and it's interesting. The cuts in the film are very rapid and perfectly timed. I think the editing in this is incredible because you have throughout this first hour and 40 minutes, maybe 10 to 20. What I call scene setups or discussion points about what's going to happen next, and then it's just a cold showered cut to that event happening, which it really works very well. It's not a slow film at all. It's a talky film, but like I say, the talking and the setups are very quickly done. They get you to the scene and get you to the next key moment in the film. So yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed with it so far. Kobayashi apparently, as a director, has a very limited had a very limited number of films he produced or directed. I think less than 20. But he came out at a time when you had a lot of the great directors. He was of the same age as Kurosawa, and they all kind of came out at that same time, at the same age. So it's interesting to contrast. It would be interesting to contrast like Seven Samurai stylistically with Kobayashi's work here with The Human Condition, but maybe we'll get further into that when we wrap this thing up. But that's part one. So I will be back and cover part two of The Human Condition trilogy shortly. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching.